What's going on everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm that Scottish nerd that brings you Pokemon TCG content, so if that's something that interests you, be sure to hit the subscribe button down below as I do have videos multiple times a week. But in today's video we're looking at Lapras VMAX in the expanded format, as well as the Water Box as a whole and the supporting Pokemon around it. There are timestamps in the description as always if you want to skip ahead past the deck profile, but let's get straight into that deck profile right now. Here is the Lapras VMAX. It has 320 HP, which is definitely a lot of HP for any Pokemon to have, and it's kind of a mid-range for the VMAXs overall. It only has one attack unfortunately, but it is a very powerful one. It is G-Max Pump. For 3 colourless energy you do 90 damage, but you do an additional 30 damage for each water energy attached to this Pokemon. So of course this is a water deck, all of those energy are going to be water energy, so you're doing a base damage of 180 damage, and then of course it scales from there. So if you attach a 4th energy, you're dealing 210 damage, which is going to be enough to knock out the majority of basic GX and V Pokemon, and EX Pokemon as well, I suppose, since it's expanded. Now this is the deck overall. We'll take a look at the Pokemon first as always. Of course, if you need the VMAX, then you're going to need the Lapras V as well. It has 210 HP as I mentioned, so it's one of those Vs that would get knocked out if you were playing the mirror match. And it doesn't really have fantastic attacks here. It has Body Surf, which can attach an additional energy. And then we also have Ocean Loop, which puts 2 energy back into the hand, but it does do 210 damage, so it could be useful, but for the most part you're not going to be wanting to attacking with this, and you're going to be wanting to use a support Pokemon in the early turns, or just get set up quick enough. For example, we have Lapras GX here, which has Collect, which allows you to draw 3 cards, so if you're really struggling you can use this, as well as the secondary attack Blizzard Burn for 160 is great for finishing off Pokemon as a 2 prizer, so it's really good in a trade-off. And then the GX attack Ice Beam allows you to paralyze the defending Pokemon, which is great for stalling. Then we also have 2 copies of Manaphy EX here. Its ability allows you to have free retreat if you have a water energy attached. Pretty straightforward. We don't usually attack with this, and it does have low HP. Then we also have Glaceon EX here. Its second bite attack again can be good for finishing off a big Pokemon, but mainly its Crystal Ray attack does 70 damage and stops the defending Pokemon from dealing any damage to us if it's an evolution. So any of those stage 2 Pokemon or stage 1s, VMAXs, any of that stuff, as long as it's an evolution, it's not going to be able to deal any damage to us, which can be very irritating for your opponent. Then we have Articuno GX. Its attack allows you to go straight into the active spot and move any number of water energy onto it, which is great for instantly powering it up if you already have a bunch of energy in play. Again, going into a 2-hit after using a G-Max Pump so that you're 2-hitting things, as well as trading nicely against your opponent. And then again, its GX attack is fantastic. Cold Crush GX discards all energy from both active Pokemon, but only requires 1 energy to use. So typically against a Pokemon that has 3 or 4 energy attached to it, you use Cold Crush GX and that's going to set your opponent back greatly. We also have Articuno as our last attacker. This is a non-GX version, but it has the Ancient Trait Plus, which allows you to take an extra prize card, so it's a no-brainer in this deck. If you want to finish off something, then you can finish it off with this Articuno to take extra prizes. Then we also have a 1-1 Octillery line. This Octillery allows you to draw cards until you have 5 cards in your hand with its Abyssal Hand ability. Fantastic for draw throughout all portions of the game. Late game especially when you have low hand sizes with the N going down to a low hand size, you can use the Abyssal Hand to refill it. Going into our trainer cards here, and starting off with the supporters, we have 4 copies of Professor Sycamore. Pretty straightforward, discard your hand, draw 7, staple in every expanded deck. We have 3 copies of N, again, staple and expanded, shuffle and draw based on prizes. We have a copy of Mallow. Since we are playing the Octillery, it can be nice just to use Mallow, but this can be switched out for any card of your choice. Then we also have a Lysander, just to bring up something from the bench and take a knockout on that. Going through our main engine of the item cards, this whole powered up in energy acceleration without Blastoise solely relies on these two cards, and it is Aqua Patch, getting energy from your discard pile, putting it onto one of your benched water Pokemon, and then we also have 4 copies of Max Elixir, which looks at the top 6 cards of your deck and attaches a basic energy onto one of your basic benched Pokemon. So again, this is going to be accelerating energy. We have 4 counts of both of these, so you're going to be accelerating loads of energy without the need of Blastoise or Frostmoth or anything like that. And then we just have a bunch of consistency in the form of Ultra Ball, Dive Ball, and Trainer's Mail. Dive Ball, again, just one of these fantastic cards for water support. Allows you to simply search out a water Pokemon. Straight search, definitely a no-brainer in any water deck. And to finish it off, we have the Versus Seeker, of course, but mainly the Rough Seas here. Being able to heal 30 damage from each of your Pokemon, so against any kind of spread deck, you're going to be completely nullifying their deck. As well as just keeping your big VMAX alive, because it has so much HP. The whole point of having these other supporting Pokemon and being able to switch to them is so you can heal your VMAX on the bench with Rough Seas. So there is the deck in its entirety. If you do enjoy this video at any point, be sure to give it a like down below. We're going to be going through a bunch of different matchups here, and the whole focus is getting set up as quickly as possible with our energy acceleration options. And typically we're going to be attacking with our VMAX on the second turn of the game, or using one of our other Pokemon on the first turn if we go second. Let's get into a couple of matches here and see how we get on. Alrighty, we're starting this match with the double Lapras. It's definitely not a great start from us since we don't have a supporter card for the following turn, but we can use our Trainer's Mail here. Hopefully we get one. We do find an N, so we'll definitely take that. Would have much preferred a Professor Sycamore, but N will definitely suffice here. We get a bunch of energy from the Max Elixir, so we're definitely hitting that, and we're going to attach to the active and pass it over to my opponent. Definitely getting our Lapras VMAXs set up on this following turn is going to be great, and since we have the energy in play, all we need is the Manaphy EX, and that's going to allow us to have a free retreat on our Pokemon with the water energies already attached. Also getting down the Remoraid early there was very nice, since we will be able to get into Artillery pretty quickly, and that's going to give us a nice bunch of consistent draw power throughout the game. Even after getting hit with N, then it's going to be good, or in this situation where we play our hand out a lot, we can continue to use that Abyssal Hand ability on the Artillery and draw cards until we have 5 cards in our hand, of course. So my opponent here is playing some sort of metal deck. Looks like they're going to be trying to stall out. They have the Lucario and Melmetal GX here, and they're hitting into us for the 50 damage and getting an extra energy attached onto itself as well. We do find another Max Elixir, so we'll definitely be playing that down to get more energy into play. And we can put down the Rough Seas as well to heal some of the damage, although we will still be getting knocked out by the Lucario Melmetal if we're not able to find an energy to retreat. We do get the energy though, although we aren't able to get the use out of the Aqua Patch there. We do also get the big VMAX that we could make use of. Kind of want to protect this Remoraid, so we are going to retreat it regardless here, and we can go into our Lapras with the single energy, use the Aqua Patch to put the energy back into play on our other Lapras, and then we can just pass it over to my opponent. I think I'm perfectly fine with this Lapras taking a hit here, as we can just heal it off over time with the Rough Seas that we have in play. So my opponent picked down the Zamazenta or Zacian. They put down the Golden Zacian here, and they also replace the Stadium, which is a bit unfortunate. Definitely want to be making use of the Rough Seas, and they have the Metal Stadium here, which actually prevents special conditions, so this could be a little bit irritating, as it will be preventing us from being able to paralyze them with our Lapras GX. So we may have to use something else to get around that, or if we find a Rough Seas as well, that could be good. We get into the VMAX here, as well as drawn into that GX Lapras that I just mentioned, and we can use our Versus Seeker to grab an N, hopefully getting into the Manaphy. or even artillery as well would be very nice and useful. We do get the dive ball, so we will be able to find the Manaphy here in order to retreat, and we even get the stadium as well, which is great. So we'll take the Manaphy. We do have the other VMAX and our Articunos, which is good, as well as the artillery is in the deck. So we can put our Manaphy down. That's going to allow us to have a free retreat into our VMAX. And I think I want to attach to the active as well in order to deal some additional damage, since they are going to be reducing damage, although they have the GX attack that they've not used, and this GX attack discards all energy on the defending Pokemon. So if we attach to the active, we're going to be putting ourselves in a really bad spot. So definitely going to be attaching to the bench instead, putting down Rough Seas to heal off the benched Pokemon, and then just hit into our opponent using that G-Max pump attack for 150 damage, since they do have the Metal Frying Pan, which reduces damage by 30. So we see my opponent is also playing Max Elixir, but they're not able to hit any energy, so I'm guessing they're playing fewer energy than us, or they just got a little bit unlucky. They're playing Lily as well, which is interesting. You don't see that very often in Expanded. And there is the GX attack that I did mention, discarding all of our energy, so we're going to have to try and find a VMAX as well as a bunch more energy to put into play here. We can make use of the Rough Seas to continue to heal our bench Pokemon, and we can use Dive Ball to get ourselves an artillery into play. Even making use of the Mallow could be good here. That would be able to give us some additional cards, but I think we need more than just 2 cards. We really need multiple cards here. We need energy and energy for the bench as well as that VMAX. So instead I'm going to go with the Versus Seeker for N once again, shuffling our hand into our deck and hoping for the perfect combination of cards here. And we do get the Max Elixir and energy, but we miss out on the VMAX unfortunately. We could try and dig for it with the artillery that we do have in play, or alternatively, if we do miss, we could go with the GX attack of our own on our Articuno. We do hit the Max Elixir, but as I said, we don't have any means of retreating, although actually we could use this Articuno, of course. The ability on Articuno here, we can put it into the active spot, and then we can just retreat it by attaching the energy. So we'll put that into the active, we don't need to move energy over to it, and then we'll cancel that, attach energy onto it, and then use artillery, looking for that GX here, and we're not able to find it, so instead we will just use our GX attack. We weren't looking for the GX, the VMAX of course, but here we are going to use our GX attack of our own, and that's going to discard all of my opponent's energy, so we're doing it right back to them, what they did to us, getting rid of their energy and putting them in a horrible position where they're really behind. And at least on our side, we have free movement of our Pokemon with Manaphy, so we can just attach to the active and then do what we need to do. And we even have Aqua Patches, so we can get some of these energy back that we had to miss out on, since we have only used 1 Aqua Patch so far. My opponent hits us with the Escape Rope, so I think I will switch into the VMAX, since it will be able to survive a whole load of damage. And we do have our Rough Seas, so we can always heal some of that damage. See what my opponent switches into, they go into the Jirachi, using the Stellar Wish ability, looking at the top 5 cards of their deck and getting themselves a trainer card. They go for the Guzma, so they might look to try and pull up one of our Pokemon to deal some damage to something that they choose, but nope, instead they're going for Jasmine instead. Very nice full art Jasmine there, and finding themselves the VMAX Copperaja. They're evolving into the Copperaja VMAX there, and they're going to be looking to attack with that at some point, but instead, for now, they're just using the Intrepid Sword to draw 3 cards, not finding any Metal Energy once again, which is great for us. And there's that Aqua Patch that I was talking about just earlier, so we can definitely use that to attach energy. I think I want to put it onto our active VMAX, so instead I'll attach to the active so that we can retreat. And we can also make use of N. I think once again that is the only supporter that we have available to us, unfortunately. So we will retreat into our benched Lapras, use an Aqua Patch to get some of our energy back into play onto that VMAX. And then we can go with the Versus Seeker for N and reduce my opponent's hand size a little bit, and hopefully find a VMAX of our own. And there we go, there is the VMAX, as well as a couple more Articuno that we can make use of at some point, which is very good. And we even get the Aqua Patch to boot as well, which is an excellent pickup. So we'll definitely play that down, get our energy back, and we can make use of Abyssal Hand to draw an additional card here. Always wanting to fill up our hand and make sure that we've got some great draws going on. And we'll go with the GMAX Pump once again, getting a knockout on this Jirachi and taking the first prize card of the match. We get into our Full Art Manaphy EX, very nice card. One of my favourite full arts of all time, is very nice looking. And my opponent sends up the Copperajah VMAX. Let's have a look at this big bad boy. He has 4 energy for 240 damage, or you can do some additional damage with that first attack as well. But we see here my opponent's using the Cynthia. They've got the Nest Ball to get out a Delmise, which is going to be increasing their metal attacks by 10 damage. And they're just hitting us for 110 damage. So now that we have both of our VMAX Pokemon set up, we can switch between these freely with our Manaphy. And we even have the Mallow if we want to make use of that and get any cards that we want. So we'll definitely want to hold on to this hand. There's not anything that I want to put into play right now. And I will be attaching this onto the GX, I think. Could be a good attacker, so yeah, just dealing that 160 damage is always going to be useful. Definitely want to put energy onto there. And then hold off on the energy for now on going forward, since we want to put it onto our Articuno with the Ancient trait, so that we can hopefully pick up some extra prize cards at some point. That would be very nice. My opponent is just attaching onto the active, so they're going to be going for the 240, but instead they're just going to concede. I guess they didn't want to be battling us anymore, and we were most likely going to be winning that game anyways. Let's get into another match. My opponent is playing a fire deck. They have the Reshiram and Charizard tag team there, as well as the fire deck box and Charmander sleeve, so going to be very heavily focused on fire. Wouldn't be surprised if they concede at some point, considering we're going to be hitting them for weakness. But you never know, if they are able to get set up faster than us, then they might be able to swing the match in their favour and take a victory on us. They discard a Charmander off of the computer search here, as well as a Charizard, so they're definitely all focused on Charizard and playing a fully Charizard centric deck. We see they're getting some energy out of the deck with the Professor's Letter there, but they weren't able to put down any Charmander. A bit surprised that they didn't play the Charmander here, but there you go. Some people just be like that, I guess. We'll attach onto the active, we'll put the Rough Seas into play and make use of Professor Sycamore here, looking for some Pokemon to put into play, as well as making use of some Pokemon, what's it? Aqua Patch, of course, the Aqua Patch that we just discarded. Now we could actually go in here with Articuno if we're able to hit both of these Max Elixirs, so that seems pretty good. Let's go with that. We'll use Max Elixir, we hit one. I'm just looking for another one off this Max Elixir. We do hit it. Fantastic, so we can put Articuno into play. It goes into the active with its ability, and then we can move any number of energy onto it. So we're going to move all of these energy, and then of course use Articuno to attack it. I was only doing 130, so not quite enough to hit for knockout with the weakness. We're just 10 damage short, but still doing that 260 on the first turn of the game. That is fantastic against a fire deck, and definitely what you want to be using. Of course, that is what's going to be happening. Since you are a water based deck, you're definitely going to be playing into your advantages and playing into your strengths, really. So my opponent is really on the back foot. They're having to use Welder and go onto the bench, but they are able to get a return knockout since they do have that outrage attack, which is going to allow them to do enough damage to get a knockout. We'll promote our Remoraid here, since we don't want to be giving our opponent easy 2 prizes, really. So we'll attach onto the bench. We can use Ultra Ball to discard these 2 Pokemon, or Pokemon and Lysander, and then we can use Ultra Ball here to search out some other Pokemon. We'll get ourselves Articuno and put that into play, along with using our Professor Sycamore once again. we're going to be looking to power up this Articuno as quickly as possible so that we can use that to take out surprise cards on my opponent. So we get an Aqua Patch, that's going to be great for powering it up. We have a couple of Dive Ball that we can make use of. We can get Octillery here, we might get some use out of it. And we get another Dive Ball, getting ourselves a Lapras V. So we'll put those into play as well as the Manaphy, and we can put Octillery down. That's going to allow us to draw 2 cards, which we might as well make use of while we can. And we don't get a whole lot of useful cards, unfortunately, so we will have to pass it back over to my opponent. We can get a follow-up knockout on this following turn. Since we have the Glaceon here, we just have to attach an energy, and we're going to be doing a ridiculous amount of damage to our opponent. We're just a little bit concerned about the Ninetales that's getting powered up in the back there. The Ninetales V can copy one of the defending Pokemon's attacks here for a fire and a double colorless. Choose one of the defending Pokemon's attacks or anti-Pokemon's attacks. So using a Glaceon, it's not going to be doing a whole lot. As you can see here, Glaceon has the second bite attack, so it does damage based on the defending Pokemon's damage, as well as the Crystal Ray only dealing 70 damage, so we're not too worried about the Ninetales in this situation since we'll be going in with Glaceon, but we'll certainly see what my opponent has here. They have the Welder once again, as well as the Stadium replacement, putting down the Heat Factory, which is going to give them even more draws to work with. The main concern here is of course the Ninetales' second attack, since they do have the energy for it now. They are able to deal 180 damage while discarding an energy, but that's not too much of a big deal since fire decks typically play a lot of energy anyways. And we will put up our Articuno here since we have free retreat on our Manaphy anyway. I don't mind putting the Articuno up at this point. We'll play down our VMAX as well as putting down the Rough Seas to counter the Heat Factory my opponent has, try and limit their draws a little bit. And we can attach onto the VMAX, I think, going with the Versus Seeker and grabbing ourselves a Professor Sycamore so that we can get into some better draws of our own. Let's see what we get. We get a Max Elixir as well as the Aqua Patch. Bit unfortunate that we didn't find another Aqua Patch. We could have been attacking with the VMAX here, but you never know, might hit it off of the Trainer's Mail here. Let's go with another Max Elixir, and we'll put that energy onto the Glaceon. And then we'll go with our Trainer's Mail, hoping for the Aqua Patch. No, we get N instead. So we're not able to get a big amount of damage in here. We could try and put my opponent to sleep, although we do know that they're playing the switches. It might just be our best bet, so let's go with the sleep here, hoping that my opponent stays asleep anyway. And of course they instantly get head, so they wake up and they are able to take a knockout here, dealing that 180 damage for a very nice easy knockout. We will at least be able to get a response here on my opponent with our Lapras VMAX, as we do have the energy in hand for it at the very least. And we do also have the Lysander, so we can bring up the Reshiram and Charizard that's on the bench there, because if we don't, then they're going to be hitting us for a lot of damage with the Outrage attack once again. So we see my opponent has the Boss's Order, so they're preemptively going to be hitting us, dealing 90 damage onto us, as it is based on our attacks, and our base attack is 90. So that's fine, we can just attach our energy. As I said, we're going to be making use of Lysander to bring up that tag team Pokemon. And then I think we're just going to be hitting into it. We don't really need to use the Ultra Balls, we don't need anything out of the deck really. So we're getting a knockout on the tag team, take 3 prize cards, and my opponent is going to be left with the Ninetales V as their main attacker, only dealing at 90 damage at a time. And of course we can heal a little bit of that off each turn with the Rough Seas that we have. But here comes the Rare Candy into Charizard on the bench there. My opponent will be looking to use that at some point. We see a Professor's Research, discarding their hand and drawing 7 cards. Going down to 19 cards left in deck, so still a reasonable amount of cards left. But here comes a Battle Compressor, discarding up to 3 cards from their deck. We do have quite a few good amount of cards to work with here. We have the Max Elixir as well as the Trainer's Mail. As I mentioned earlier, we'd love to find some more Aqua Patch. We still have one available left in the deck somewhere, hopefully it's not prized, and seeing as we have 4 energy in the discard pile, those Aqua Patches are going to be becoming really useful in order to keep our energy in play. And wow, it's almost as like I predicted the top deck. That's incredible. We top deck the Aqua Patch as well, so we can definitely get our energy into play here. And I think I'm going to be wanting to put it onto our Articuno, since it's going to be allowing us to take extra prizes if we get a knockout with it. So we'll definitely go with that. We have the Max Elixir to get more energy into play, going onto the Articuno once again. And we can make use of this Trainer's Mail just to thin it out the hand a little bit. We get a Dive Ball, so again just thinning the deck before we use our supporter. We can take the Articuno and use Ultra Ball to discard some of these cards. And we get the Lapras as the last Pokemon. I definitely don't want to put it into play right now. And we'll go with the N just to shuffle our hand back into the deck and shuffle up our opponent as well. Try and mess with them a little bit, put them down to 3 cards. We get the Rescue Stretcher, which could be nice if we want to recover something. But we are going to go in with the Lapras and get the knockout here, I think. Dealing our massive 360 damage in order to get a knockout on our opponent and go down to 1 prize card remaining. You're going to have to find a lot of cards in order to get a knockout here, and even if they do, then we have a bunch of backup attackers. My opponent says well played, so I guess they're going to be getting a knockout here. Are getting a knockout, they have all of their Leons in the discard pile, so they're dealing 300 damage and they're able to take a knockout on our VMAX. So bit of a misplay on our part, maybe we should have knocked out with a Articuno or something. Get into another match here. Alrighty, we're starting off this match with the Remoraid in the active spot. We're up against a fellow water deck by the looks of things. They have Blastoise in the active, as they're also putting down a Squirtle. So my opponent really likes Blastoise, and I don't blame them because I love Blastoise myself. So let's see what we get off this Dive Ball. Let's see, we have a bunch of options here that we could make use of. I think getting out the VMAX is going to be a good idea. Try and power through my opponent's Pokemon, as well as making use of the Lapras GX at some point. That GX attack is always going to be a powerful option in order to paralyze our opponent. So we get an energy off of the Max Elixir. We are unfortunately going to be losing our only Rescue Stretcher here, but we do get into a VMAX for the following turn. We have the energy attachment that we made, and I think we can just pass over to our opponent here, as there's not a whole lot that we are able to do. Hopefully my opponent doesn't get into the Blastoise with Deluge. That would allow them to accelerate a whole bunch of energy into play. Instead they're going to be using Crasher Wake. They get to discard 2 water energy from their hand and get 2 cards out of the deck, any 2 cards. So that could get them the Blastoise and the Rare Candy, and yep, that is exactly what they've gone for here, or at least 1 or 2 of the pieces. So it is in fact not the Blastoise with Deluge, it has Powerful Squall instead, and you have to look at the top 6 cards of your deck and you get to attach as many energy from there onto your Pokemon. It's very unreliable, as you can see here. They didn't find any water energy whatsoever, so it's going to be putting us in a fantastic position in order to make a swing into the Pokemon that my opponent has here. So we have the VMAX. I think we want to attach onto the active and also make use of the Ultra Ball here. So we're going to Ultra Ball, discarding Glaceon as well as Lysander, and we can get ourselves our Manaphy. Definitely need that in order to retreat for free. And then we can also use Trainer's Mail here. And we get a Sycamore, which isn't the best, but we'll take it. And we also have a Mallow that we could make use of, but I don't really want to, as we really need some other cards like Aqua Patch and things of that nature. So we'll evolve into our benched VMAX and then use our Professor Sycamore, hoping to find the Aqua Patch that we do find. So there we have the attack, G-Max Pump already and powered up, and we can retreat into it since we have free retreat, and go for the G-Max Pump, dealing 180 damage, and we will be able to hit our opponent. and you will be 2-hitting anything with this deck really, but if you want to go for a 1-hit, then you could always power up your Lapras a little bit more, put some extra energy on there, and you can easily 1-hit some basic V and GX Pokemon. But my opponent has the A-Spec Scoop Up Cyclone there, as you've seen, picking up their defending Pokemon and healing all damage as it is going into their hand. They give us an angry face as they're not hitting anything off of the powerful Squall, and that just goes to show why the other Blastoise is so much better with Deluge, as you're able to actually get energy into play a whole load easier. So we have the Lysander here, we're definitely going to be playing that down, and we can put our other Lapras down and start attaching to it, and go for a VMAX pump once again for the 180 damage. Hopefully my opponent doesn't have any shenanigans this time around. I mean, you're only allowed one A-Spec, so not unless they have a way of recovering that Scoop Up Cyclone, we should be in the clear here in order to get a knockout. My opponent also playing the Rough Seas, which makes total sense, is a very powerful card, and also means that we don't have to put down a Rough Seas of our own. Let's see if they hit any off of the powerful Squall this time. They hit one. Is there any more? Okay, they've got two, one going onto the bench this time, third energy as well, and we've seen the deck shuffling, so they don't have any more, but they are hitting us for 100 damage, and also going for the GX attack there, which does paralyze us. We have the Octillery that we can put into play, which is excellent, and also make use of Rough Seas of our own. Now, I would love to find the Articuno, but I think when we looked through our deck there, it was prized, so we won't be able to find that. And we could also make use of Mallow here. That would allow us to get any two cards from our deck, or alternatively we could use Professor Sycamore. So I think I will go with the Sycamore instead. So I'm going to grab the Professor Sycamore here, definitely going to be attaching onto our bench, and then we can use Professor Sycamore to draw 7 cards. Again, as I said, we have the Articuno prized, I'm pretty sure, so we'll not bother with that. And my opponent could be hitting us for a lot of damage next turn. They have the Splash Maker, which is going to be dealing 150 damage, which isn't quite enough to get a knockout on us, thankfully, so we should be okay here unless they get the Lapras VMAX of their own. We'll go with the Max Elixir. We get an energy off the top, so we can definitely get that into play. And we could always use Ultra Ball here just to see what we get. We can get rid of the Water and the Rough Seas since we don't need those. And yeah, the Articuno GX is prized, so we can just take the regular Articuno instead, which is a shame, but it's still going to be useful, and we'll power that up with Aqua Patch and also make use of Abyssal Hand here, drawing 3 cards off the top. It's going to be good for getting set up, and we'll just pass over to our opponent since we are paralyzed. We're not able to attack. And we go to my opponent's turn. I'm guessing they're not going to have a supporter since their hand is pretty lackluster right now. They have the Rough Seas that they can make use of as well, going down to only having 120 damage on them. But since we're hitting for 180, we're not going to have any problem getting a knockout here. My opponent, again, trying to power up the Lapras in the back. And we just want to decide what we want to get a knockout with here. I think we've gone to the Lapras and used that, the GX anyway, to get a knockout. That would mean that we can protect our VMAX and yeah, just protect it from getting knocked out with my opponent's benched Lapras. So we'll continue to attach onto our benched Articuno. We can make use of Dive Ball just to thin it out of the hand, and use Abyssal Hand to draw an additional card. And we'll go with our secondary attack here, which does 160 damage. That's going to be plenty to get the knockout and take 3 prize cards since the defending Pokemon was a tag team Pokemon. So there's our other Manaphy, there's our other Lapras, and there's Articuno. So all of our Pokemon that were prized, we've managed to pick those up, which is fair enough. Definitely want to be making use of the Articuno at some point if we need it, but the time has really passed for making use of it since my opponent has already paralyzed us. But if we need to use the GX attack on it at some point, we can. And we also have Lapras GX's GX attack as well that we can make use of if we need to. My opponent's going all in here with the Lapras V, really looking for the VMAX. I'm guessing they get a switch off of the Trainer's Mail, but they don't have it, so they're just going to be hitting into us for 210 damage, and they have to move 2 energy onto their bench as well there, as you can see. So this is where we can shine. We can go in with the Lapras VMAX of our own, and we can attach additional energy in order to get a knockout here. We have the Rough Seas to continue to heal, and we could always use one of our Pokemon that we got off the prizes as well if we need to. So we're attaching onto the active. We could make use of the Trainer's Mail, but there's not really anything that we need, and my opponent is going to concede, so they're not able to do anything against us, and they just want to concede it. So that is it from me. If you did enjoy this video, be sure to give it a like, as I mentioned earlier, as well as a comment with what your thoughts are on the deck, and I'll catch you in the next video.